I just asked it as a follow-up. Write a script for me for a blind voicemail to send to the client regarding this issue as a follow-up. And sure, here it is. Here's my script now that I can literally take a moment, record, put into my system as a blind voicemail.
I ordered a Bitcoin miner, which is, you can probably actually hear it behind me a little bit. And I remember as part of the shipping process into Mexico, there's like a form you got to slip into as like a customs kind of form to get across the border. And the company didn't do it. And so it got held up at the border, and I alerted them, and they said, shipping is in our department. I'm saying, it's not shipping. There's a form they need from you to process it. And they just kept putting me off. And I kind of I was kind of an asshole, to be honest. So I was like, listen, I'm gonna take this up with my credit card and demand like a refund now. And I'm gonna make sure to leave you guys some bad reviews, because I've asked you like 6 different times to fix this. Like, I'll even fill out the form for you, just it has to come from you. They won't accept it from me, right? So I'll give you the paperwork, just do it so I can get my miner. And eventually they did it, but it was like the whole thing was miserable, and it left a taste in my mouth, because they weren't willing to acknowledge or fix their error that said, I'll never do business with these people ever again. This is the first and only time. And I remember as a comparable thing, I ordered probably a little oversharing, but I ordered a Nintendo Wii for myself. It was like a gift from me to me. I have a hard time buying myself stuff, but I bought myself a Nintendo Wii. And there was an issue with one of the games I bought, The Legend of Zelda. It wasn't going to make it, and I contacted eBay support and said, what should I do? Because sometimes stuff just doesn't arrive in Mexico. And they said, well, we'll give you a refund, and if it shows up, you can just keep it. And it's like, wow, cool. Now I feel okay, I'm in good hands. And it was only $20 or something like that. But it just the way they handled it and bound. And the same thing is true in the agency space, is all that make every business is kind of the same. Like what Jonathan just showed you guys, when a little error with a client happens, if you get into a pissing match and say it's not our problem, you ensure that client will cancel later. If you say, hey, you're absolutely right, we're taking these steps to fix it, we appreciate you, here's what we're doing to remedy it now and in the future, that's a totally different response.
No, and the other thing, I don't know if everybody's aware of or not, but I'll go back and share the screen again. When you're in ChatGPT, if you stay in that same tab, it remembers the conversation. So the neat thing is I can now ask a follow-up question. I know you're familiar with, we can do blind voicemails to people, but just drop it in their voicemail. And so, I just asked it as a follow-up, write a script for me for a blind voicemail to send to the client regarding this issue as a follow-up. And sure, here it is. Here's my script now that I can literally take a moment, record, put into my system as a blind voicemail, send to him, and it's going to, show up in his voicemail. No risk of him calling, no risk of me having to have a conversation and go over things. Just another follow-up, another touch point, kind of like you were just saying, that one more example of we care and we're doing something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually these voicemail drops, I can attest to the power of them. We actually back, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, when we still did sales calls before we transferred everything over to Loom closing. I remember it was an issue for us that just getting people to show up for the sales calls they booked. And we tried everything that everybody suggested, a gazillion reminders and all those things. And people just found for whatever reason, it was early funnel. They didn't know us, and it was just very easy for them to flake. And we were having show up rates of 50%. And there's nothing worse than you got an hour and a half blocked out on the calendar, and then all of a sudden nobody's there. And a friend of mine suggested what you just said, a blind voice drop of add in a blind voice drops. And we set it up technologically using a tool called Sly Broadcast. And you could use Go High Level or something equivalent now. But we use Sly Broadcast, and I remember it just sent an automated blind voicemail, and it just hey, this is Frankie, I'm really excited for our call. I saw you just booked. Here's what we're going to go over. Here's the nature of the discussion. If at the end of that you're interested in our services, we'll tell you how much. If you're not, there's no pitch. Nobody's going to chase you or harass you or anything like that. And it's a minute voice drop. And we found as soon as we added that personal touch, and the beautiful thing, there was a delay in the software. It took 10 minutes to actually go out. It didn't happen automatically. So it almost sounded like I really just called you and said, I'm excited to meet with you. And what happened is our show up rates went from like 50% to like more than 95%, where it was almost like everybody showed. And the few times they didn't, we're like, I got stuck in traffic. I'm still interested. Can I reschedule a time? But it was like, it went from people like ghosting us, mostly not interested. And all that changed was a little 60-second personalized note. So, I mean, what you're talking about is really powerful.
We found it to be really effective, although I'm going to steal that because we could improve our show up rates on appointments, and that might be an easy way to do it.
You get to credit my man Rob Ramoni, because he's the one who thought of that. He's way smarter than me. I just was smart enough to go, that's a good idea. I'm going to copy that.
Hey, you and I said up front, it's not about us being smart. It's about us being cognizant enough to see a smart idea and then to
Yeah.
implement it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have to have the idea. I just want to be able to implement it.
Yeah, and what you're doing, I think, is particularly brilliant. I'll put a link for those of you guys who are interested below, but Jonathan's got an awesome AI community for you guys to be part of. Like, just bringing in high level people together, like smart things are going to come out of it, and not all just from you. Things you haven't even thought of, questions you would have never thought to ask, or ideas you would have never come up with. Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll also like my book on Amazon called Beyond the Agency Box, which you can also find by my name, Frankie Finn, and it's got a lot of awesome reviews. And it really just goes deeper on a lot of things we're talking about, everything you need to grow and start a lifestyle agency, from the stages you'll go through to getting clients, to how to create winning offers, to high value deliverables, to wowing clients, to building teams, to building systems, and building a boring factory that's like a 7-figure money machine for you. So if you're interested, I put links for you in the video description, as well as it'll be in the pinned top comment below, and make sure to check those out.